I love Tanzania, and I love Mwalimu Nyerere. Worked under him. I had good relationship with John Joseph Pombe Magufuli.
Yes.
And it pains me to no end that that country, the only African country which, in my view, had succeeded fighting and almost killing ethnicity, where men and women were beginning to be judged on merit, that has found itself in this space. It is, in my view, as a result of what I call political paranoia. Okay. The current leadership simply got into the space which was dangerous. It became too hypersensitive to criticism. But once you are in a position of leadership, you must be criticized. No matter what you do, you'll be criticized. And I've said this rather hyperbolically. Even in heaven, God himself had to confront with the Lucifer who was criticizing him and even raising an army against him, if what is in the Bible is to be believed, and it is believed. If what is in the Torah is to be believed, and it is to be believed. So, detaining people, jailing opponents is the wrong way. Nyerere himself used to say that democracy, however understood, is a competition of ideas. You put your ideas into the market of political competition. It's a buffet of ideas. Then the people will choose. In any event, I still hold the view. Even if elections were held and all these opposition leaders were to be allowed to campaign, CCM would still beat them. Because CCM is rooted in the villages and hamlets of Tanzania. But because you stop them from participating in the electoral process, because their leaders were in jail, now they have the moral high ground. It is unfortunate. And my hope and prayer is that the administration of President Samia Suluhu Hassan will enter into a political rapprochement which will entail welcoming all political leaders to discuss Tanzania. Because Tanzania is no longer the same. After the events of 29th of October, when people spill blood for whatever reason, a country is never the same. And wisdom not only requires and demands that there is a meeting, that Tanzanian political parties and players come and reason together for the sake of Tanzania. It is necessary that it is done, and I hope that it will be done.
So I mean, the reports are saying 700 dead, and I mean, it's crazy.
Even one life is too many.
One life is too many.
Yeah. One life is too many because all these could have been prevented. Politics must be a competition of ideas. And sustainable power must spring from the ballot box, not from the barrel of the gun, unless it is absolutely necessary. So it is not easy, perhaps easier said than done, but I hope that reason will prevail. And I hope that people will look at the future of Tanzania, the United Republic of Tanzania, as being more paramount than their short-term political interests.
You know, Prof, I always say this, there's no reason whatsoever for a leader to kill people to remain in power. There's no reason.
There is no reason.
There's no reason, especially when you're using the power to not even do good for the people, to benefit yourself. There's no reason why. And I even last year when we were in the streets, I was like, why are you killing people to remain in power?
Let me tell you, protest is the language of the unheard. When you hear people through normal discourse, they'll never protest. When you see people go to the streets in any country, it means that they are unheard. Therefore, they are going the extra mile. Because the natural instinct of all human beings is self-preservation.
Yes.
When people lose fear and they are prepared to put their lives on the line, you who is in position of leadership must now ask, what am I doing wrong? Not what they are doing wrong. What am I doing wrong? That is the relevant question. And once you ask that question legitimately and you've heard them, then it is your duty to engage them and find out what it is that you are doing wrong. But the politics of self-righteousness, the wise say that worse than ignorance is arrogance. And when you listen to many so-called African leaders, they are swimming in the sea of arrogance and drinking the waters of self-righteousness with which they are now drunk. And their desire is to seek power by any means necessary and to preserve it by any means necessary. When that is your mantra, you lead your country through a shortcut to chaos. And for what?
For what?
To what end?
Yeah. But what I see that is very promising is the rise of the youth, especially the Gen Zs. I mean, I'm very proud of my generation because one thing about Gen Z that I can say is that we are fearless. What do you think about the Gen Z uprisings in Morocco, in Madagascar, and now even Tanzanians? I see a lot of youth. What do you think? What do you think?
I'm a little bit more measured. I appreciate what is happening. But throughout the ages, every generation, the young of every generation have been the engines of change. Look at Africa. It is the young people in Africa who are in the forefront of the struggle for independence in all countries. Whether you are talking Kenya, they may not have been called Gen Zs. They may have been, Gen Zs came only the other day when Jean-Marie Twang wrote her thesis in the United States of America. But there was always a young generation, whether it was in South Africa, Solomon Mahlangu, Bantu Stephen Biko, they were young. Whether it was in Mozambique, it was Samora and Eduardo Mondlane. Whether it was in Swapo, in Namibia, it was Andimba Toivo, Sam Luyoma, or in Angola with people like Agustino Neto, in Zambia, Kaunda, Kapwepwe, in Kenya, Mboya, and all these. So the young generation have always been present at all times. So this generation is playing its rightful role. The Gen Z, as they are called, they are just playing their rightful role, the role that they ought to play, because history has also demonstrated that many people in power, particularly in Africa, become victims of arrogance. And you can see it. In Kenya, for example, you've seen the emergence of what I call the politics of money and money bags. The politics of the mobilization and animation of ethnicity as the process of conducting political affairs. You saw it, the arrogance in Madagascar, the arrogance in Cameroon, the arrogance in Morocco, the arrogance in Tunisia that gave birth to the Arab Spring. So it is true that this generation is playing its part. This is not the first time that young people have risen in the continent of Africa or the world. Even if you go to the rest of the world, the Young Turks in Turkey in 1908. If you go to the French Revolution and much more recently, the student riots in 1960 in France. So young people have always been the engine of change throughout the ages. And as somebody once said, I can't remember exactly who said, but if you are not a revolutionary in your youth, it's Ernesto Che Guevara, then you don't deserve living. So it is the duty of this generation to up the ante and make demands of the political class, particularly when the political class is arrogant, when the political class thinks that they can use material things to buy and retain their positions to the detriment of the people, and then they give people little pieces of things in order to confuse them without addressing the core issues. It is the duty of young people to call them out and to do what is done. And in that regard, I must say that the Kenyan young people did a very good thing. They removed the cataracts from the eyes of the politician. And of course, unfortunately, their activities and actions were torpedoed by the political class, who then entered into negotiations and postponed the changes that we truly desired. But of course, the baton has been picked.
Yes.
The baton was picked in Bangladesh to the end. The baton was picked in Nepal to the end. The baton was picked in Madagascar to the end. It means that it can be done, and it must be done. And the politicians must be reminded at all times that they do not have the monopoly of knowledge and wisdom, and that the positions they hold are positions of trust, and they ought to behave like trustees. Unfortunately, the memory of your typical African politician is not very different from the memory of a warthog and a mosquito. So I say that with all due respect.
Yeah. Prof, you know, when I was looking at what's happening in Tanzania, I thought to myself, wow, you know, we know Tanzanians for being calm, for being, for being just calm people. I never thought that Tanzanians could turn up like this. And it just goes to show you that if Tanzanians can do it, then I think they've reached the core, and I think they've reached the boiling point of their anger and of their jadedness and of their willingness to change the country. I mean, I'm surprised. Are you?
You know, beware the fury of a silent person. And there is a saying from Ghana in the Twi language that when you run after a coward for too long, you'll soon meet his or her courage. I hope you understand what I'm saying.
I am.
And that is what happens. When you think that a people cannot do certain things, people get to a stage where they are completely dissatisfied. And what happened in Tanzania, particularly in urban areas, this is what opposition in many countries always has greater appeal in urban Africa. And one can understand that is where unemployment is. That is where problems of food, housing are to be found. Rural Africa is in many ways detached from the economy. So they never bear the brunt of bad governance in a direct way. They still fetch water in the rivers, they can still till their land and not connected. But people in urban Africa are directly affected by bad governance because they see electricity in big buildings and they don't have electricity in their places of stay. They don't have water, they need money to survive. And therefore, many African governments must always remember that as people and as Africa gets a lot more urbanized, people are not asking for Ferraris. No, people are asking for water. People are asking for electricity. Young men and women who are leaving school are asking for opportunities either for employment or invention or innovation. That is what they are asking for. They are not asking for many things. And when they see the politicians increasing their salaries and stealing public funds, they get offended. They see their own age mates who were elected into office and without any effort are now the ones distributing money to them and having high quality beverages of an alcoholic nature. Then they get annoyed. Then even if there was cool as cucumber, they lose their calmness. And when that happens, when fear is conquered, oh, there is no limit to what the human being is capable of. Beware the fury of silent people. And I'm sure that the Tanzanian politician will now think very differently. They used to think that this was only a Kenyan thing
Oh, yeah.
or a Ugandan thing. No, it is a human thing.